The Successor. You are 13 years old. You live in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, navigating the suffocating, mundane pressures of a charter school lottery and the heavy expectations of a father who wears a police badge. Your origin is not a grand accident of cosmic destiny. It is a direct byproduct of corporate espionage and petty theft. A genetically enhanced arachnid, synthesized by Norman Osborn scientists and branded with a red 42, is unwittingly stolen from a high-security vault by your own uncle, a career criminal operating under the moniker of the Prowler. The spider crawls from his duffel bag in the dark of his apartment and bites you. You do not want these powers. You want to be completely invisible, a psychological desire that your violently mutated DNA literally grants you. You can manipulate your cellular structure to blend seamlessly into your environment, vanishing entirely from the naked eye. You possess a bioelectric venom blast, a devastating concussive shock generated from your nervous system that can drop a heavily armored mercenary or short-circuit high-voltage machinery. But the true crushing weight of your existence begins on the night the sky tears open over New York. You stand, paralyzed on the edge of a police perimeter line and watch the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, beaten to death on the manicured lawns of Queens by the Green Goblin. You had the power to intervene. You had the camouflage and the venom strike, but you froze out of sheer, overwhelming terror. This is your original sin. You are not putting on the mask to save the world. You are putting it on because the ghost of a martyr is demanding that his work continue. You are a successor in a universe that did not ask for you and does not trust you. You wear a black and red suit, moving through the concrete canyons, acutely aware that every single time you swing across the skyline, the city is comparing you to a dead man. You have to earn a name that is already carved into a tombstone. You are balancing advanced placement chemistry classes with the profound trauma of eventually watching your uncle die in your arms, a victim of the very criminal underworld you are sworn to dismantle. The anxiety is a constant low-frequency hum in your skull. You are the ultimate Spider-Man, heavily burdened by the realization that the mask is a permanent curse. The anomaly. You are a drummer, living in a neon-drenched alternate reality designated by the multiverse as Earth 65. Your entire existence is a tragic, reversed reflection of the established cosmic order. In your universe, the irradiated spider did not bite the brilliant, socially awkward boy, it bit you. You are given the enhanced muscular density, the hyper-agile equilibrium, and the precognitive warning sense that vibrates at the base of your skull. But the boy you were supposed to protect, your best friend, Peter Parker, is utterly destroyed by his own inadequacy. Driven by a desperate, toxic need to be special, to stand beside the newly emerged Spider-Woman, he synthesizes an experimental serum that violently transforms him into a monstrous reptilian creature. He becomes the Lizard. You fight him at the high school prom, a scene of shattered gymnasium glass, screaming teenagers, and tearing metal. You strike him with the full, unrestrained force of your enhanced musculature to stop his rampage, only to watch the genetic mutation rapidly recede, leaving the broken, dying body of your best friend bleeding out in your arms. This is the horrific foundation of your vigilantism. You are not hailed as a hero by the city, you are branded a murderer. The New York Police Department launches a massive, relentless, heavily armed manhunt to bring you down, and the specialized task force is spearheaded by your own father, Captain George Stacy. You live a fractured, agonizing double life, playing the drums in an indie rock band called the Mary Janes, desperately trying to keep a steady rhythm while your personal life collapses into chaotic noise. To survive, you eventually acquire a dimensional travel watch allowing you to flee into the multiverse, taking refuge in prime timelines where you are the one who died tragically on the George Washington Bridge. Later, you are forced to bond with a synthetic venom symbiote just to maintain your fading powers, feeding it a strict diet of cellulose and apples to keep the alien consciousness from consuming your mind. You are an anomaly, a ghost haunting the timelines, forever running from the flashing red and blue lights of your father's squad cars, knowing you can never truly go home. Vigilante. The year is 1933. The Great Depression has wrapped its cold, suffocating fingers around the throat of New York City, creating a landscape of soup lines, Hoovervilles, and absolute despair. There are no brightly colored spandex suits or swinging heroics here on Earth 902144. This world is rendered entirely in grim shades of black, white, and blood red. The societal corruption is absolute, seeping from the highest political offices down to the lowest speakeasy. You are bitten not by a radioactive accident of modern science, but by a highly venomous, mystical spider that emerges from a shattered ancient idol smuggled in from a foreign expedition. The bite induces a fever dream, a dark, terrifying vision of a multi-eyed spider bod that aggressively rewrites your biology. You do not build mechanical web shooters in a high school laboratory. The webbing extrudes naturally and painfully from your wrists, spraying out like thick black fishing nets to entangle your prey. You do not wear a mask to look friendly to the neighborhood. You stitch together your uniform from your uncle's World War I aviator gear, wearing a heavy leather trench coat, thick combat boots, and a fedora to blend seamlessly into the shadows of the alleyways. Your Uncle Ben was not shot by a random desperate burglar. He was a prominent union organizer who was torn apart and cannibalized by a feral circus freak known as the Vulture, an enforcer working directly for the city's undisputed crime boss, Norman Osborn. Because your world is inherently broken, your methods must be brutally pragmatic. You do not leave criminals securely tied up for the police, because the police are on the mob's payroll. You carry twin .45 caliber revolvers. You use lethal force without hesitation. You are a creature of the dark, a stealth operative engaging in a lethal, bloody guerrilla war against mobsters, corrupt politicians, and fascist sympathizers rising in the underground. You are the grim, inevitable consequence of a society that has entirely abandoned the rule of law. You are a detective of the dark, and you answer violence with absolute terminal velocity. The Echo. You are an echo, a genetic Xerox. You open your eyes inside a sterile, humming laboratory tube, gasping for air, possessing 20 years of deeply ingrained memories that do not fundamentally belong to you. You vividly remember the smell of Aunt May's kitchen. You remember the paralyzing, suffocating grief of Uncle Ben's death. You remember the profound, agonizing love for a woman named Gwen Stacy, but none of it is real. You are the byproduct of the clone saga, a massive, unethical biological experiment orchestrated by the obsessed and deranged geneticist known in the underworld as the Jackal. When you fight the prime Peter Parker in a smokestack and realize that you are the duplicate, the imitation, you do not stay and fight for your life. You run. You strip yourself of the Spider-Man identity, dye your hair blonde, and walk away from New York, adopting the name Ben Reilly. You spend 5 brutal, lonely years as a nomad, riding Greyhound buses across the American Midwest, sleeping in cheap roach-infested motels and working under-the-table jobs. You live with the constant, crushing existential dread that your cellular structure might be inherently unstable, terrified that at any moment you could spontaneously break down and turn to dust. But the genetically implanted instinct to protect the innocent is a curse you cannot outrun or suppress. Every single time you step into a dark alley to stop a mugging, you risk exposing your illegitimate existence to a world that would view you as a monstrosity. When you inevitably return to the city, drawn by the gravity of the life you were cloned from, you refuse to wear the classic suit. You pull a torn sleeveless blue hoodie over a crimson spandex bodysuit. You modify the weaponry, utilizing your superior intellect to develop fast-acting impact webbing and paralyzing stingers. But no matter how many lives you save, you are constantly haunted by the mirror. You are forced to operate in the massive shadow of the prime Peter Parker, constantly fighting for the basic right to exist, desperate to prove to the universe that a clone possesses a soul. It is the year 1099 on Earth 928. The world has devolved into a hyper-capitalist dystopia ruled by omnipotent megacorporations that control every aspect of human life. The sky is choked with flying vehicles and aggressive neon advertisements, casting deep, permanent shadows on the impoverished lower levels of Nueva York. You are Miguel O'Hara, a brilliant, highly arrogant geneticist employed by the corporate monolith Alchemax. Your origin is not born of a tragic accident. It is born of ruthless corporate sabotage and forced chemical addiction. When you attempt to resign from the corporation, disgusted by their unethical human trials, your commanding officer, Tyler Stone, slips a highly addictive, genetically binding narcotic called Rapture into your drink. The drug permanently alters your DNA, ensuring you will remain a corporate slave to Alchemax to secure your legal supply. In a desperate, clandestine attempt to purge the narcotic from your system, you sneak into the lab and subject yourself to an experimental genetic rewrite procedure. A jealous colleague deliberately sabotages the machinery, maliciously splicing your human genome with the DNA of a spider test subject. The resulting mutation is violent and terrifying. You do not possess a precognitive spider sense to warn you of impending danger. You must rely entirely on accelerated vision, enhanced hearing, and pure aggressive combat instincts to survive. Retractable razor-sharp talons erupt from your fingertips and toes, allowing you to climb sheer glass skyscrapers and literally tear through heavily armored corporate security forces. Prominent fangs extend from your jaw, secreting a paralyzing non-lethal venom into your enemies. Your spinnerets are entirely organic, firing thick, incredibly strong webbing directly from your forearms. You wear a Dia de las Muertes festival costume made of unstable molecules, the only fabric capable of withstanding the tearing force of your own talons. Guided by a holographic AI named Lila, you are an unwilling revolutionary. You are a scientist turned apex predator, fighting a brutal one-man war to dismantle the corporate oligarchy that is actively poisoning the future. You are Dr. Otto Octavius. Your physical body is a decaying, battered husk, failing rapidly after years of severe cranial trauma and superhuman beatings sustained during your criminal career. In your final, desperate act of absolute sociopathic genius, you orchestrate the ultimate theft. Using a customized golden Octobot, you force a complete, irreversible consciousness transfer, mapping your brilliant mind into the physically flawless, superpowered body of your greatest enemy, Peter Parker. You trap his mind inside your dying, rotting form in a high-security prison medical ward, and you force him to experience the agonizing physiological failure of your own biological death. But as his consciousness fades from your old body, you absorb his core memories. You feel the crushing, defining guilt of Uncle Ben's death burning into your psyche. This massive psychological contamination permanently alters your sociopathy. You decide that you will not destroy his legacy. You will optimize it. You will become the superior Spider-Man. You entirely discard the childish jokes and the chaotic improvisational combat style. You operate with cold, brutal, algorithmic efficiency. When the Scorpion attacks, you do not pull your punches. You strike with maximum kinetic force, shattering his jaw entirely to permanently neutralize the threat. When the terrorist known as Massacre actively murders hostages, you do not send him back to an asylum. You execute him point blank with a firearm. You build a private, heavily armed militia stationed on a fortress called Spider Island 2. You deploy thousands of microscopic spider bots across the city grid, creating an absolute surveillance state that alerts you to crimes before they even occur. You effortlessly complete Peter's neglected doctorate. You found a multi-billion-dollar technology corporation, Parker Industries. You are ruthless, clinically arrogant, and deeply, terrifyingly effective. But your unrelenting drive for absolute perfection slowly alienates the Avengers, destroys Peter's personal relationships with Mary Jane and his family, and completely isolates you in a prison built by your own massive ego. You are the template, the prime variant of Earth 616. You are the foundational anchor of the great web of life and destiny. Your story began over a decade ago in the sterile halls of a science exhibit with the bite of a highly irradiated arachnid. You are the teenager who discovered that he possessed the proportional strength, speed, and agility of an insect and immediately used it to make cash in an underground wrestling ring. You are the boy who arrogantly let a petty thief run past you into an elevator, a momentary act of selfish apathy that directly resulted in the murder of your Uncle Ben. That single horrific miscalculation forged the inescapable iron law of your entire existence. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. You are the original martyr of the multiverse. You have fought literal cosmic gods, heavily armed mercenaries, symbiote serial killers, and street-level psychopaths, masking your profound psychological terror behind a constant, irritating stream of jokes designed to keep you from freezing in panic. You vividly remember the horrific snap of Gwen Stacy's neck on the George Washington Bridge, a failure of your own webbing that haunts your nightmares every time you close your eyes. You remember being drugged, shot, and buried alive in a grave by Craven the Hunter. You have literally made a pact with a demonic entity, Mephisto, sacrificing your marriage to Mary Jane Watson to save the life of your elderly aunt from an assassin's bullet. The physical toll on your body is unimaginable. You suffer from countless untreated concussions, shattered ribs, chemical burns from the Green Goblin's pumpkin bombs, and deep lacerations that you have stitched up yourself with a needle and thread in a dark, freezing apartment because you cannot go to a hospital without exposing your identity. But the psychological toll is infinitely worse. You live in a state of endless, grinding poverty, constantly facing eviction because saving a hijacked subway train made you late for a freelance photography gig at the Daily Bugle. You can never, ever stop. Every single time you attempt to lay down the mask, throw the suit in a garbage can, and walk away to live a normal life, the universe violently punishes you and someone innocent dies. You are trapped in a perpetual cycle of punishing violence and overwhelming guilt. You are the eternal workhorse of the multiverse, carrying the crushing weight of the entire city on your heavily bruised shoulders until it finally breaks you.